is as follows. One, Diamond Trust Bank is a bank that actually exists in Kenya, regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya like every other bank. But they have something specific and special to say about mortgages. Now, for those of you who have difficulties in believing that there are such things, yes, mortgages exist, and Diamond Trust Bank are saying, look, whether you are employed, whether you are self-employed, whether you are in the diaspora, we offer solutions that suit your needs and fit into the size of your pocket. What you need to do to verify it is simply do the following. One, either email mortgages@dtbafrica.com or visit any Diamond Trust branch. And what will you be told? You'll be told that Diamond Trust offers mortgages at 9% for 10 years, 9.75% for 25 years. And this is constant, it is fixed, it won't fluctuate. Come sunshine or rain or earthquake, it will be exactly where it is.
I'm still on sunshine, but okay. Okay.
I know you're on shine. the word is actually sunshine.
Thanks.
Yes. And they're also saying that if you want to participate in buying the house you've always dreamt in, all you need is to have a conversation with them. That's all they're saying.
Period.
You have a conversation with us, and we will work out something that suits your needs.
Super duper. If you'll allow me also tell you about the Cover Bora medical cover under Jubilee Insurance. It's good stuff. It's budget friendly. It is inpatient hospitalization cover. So you can imagine premiums that start from 6,200 shillings per year for individuals and to 12,600 shillings per year for a family of up to 5 individuals. Under Jubilee Health Insurance, with this Cover Bora, you have affordable inpatient only cover with limits of 250k, 350k, or 500k. K in this means thousands. Inbuilt maternity and last expense benefits, minimal waiting period, and no health checkups required. We're not going to check and say, okay, maybe there's something. Just get in and we move. All you need to do is send health to 40643 or call 0709 949 000 or get onto the website jubileeinsurance.com. Find about Cover Bora. It's what you would need. When a medical emergency pops up, you don't have to now start scrambling about. Put the money away and you start accessing immediately. Cover Bora under Jubilee Health Insurance. This morning, our guest, who is seated in the hot seat at this time, is the Principal Secretary in the State Department of Energy, Waziri Alex Washira. Good morning.
Morning, Gudo. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure for me to be seated here to discuss serious energy issues that are affecting the country.
Indeed.
And thank you for hosting me with City Muga and Doris.
Asante sana.
Yeah.
We're glad that you're here because, we know energy, it essentially makes the world go round. And sitting in this particular position, we want to see then what those connectors are between this department and Kenya's economy, and the energy sector itself and Kenya's economy. So we're glad that you're in the seat with us this morning. We're going to provide you with some nourishment later. In the meantime, can you do something for us? We're already asking for you to do some work. CT goes around Africa every week. Yeah, maybe on an energy train. We'll see.
Yeah.
He comes back every week from a different country with a basket full of proverbs. He's going to share the proverb and which country it's coming from. And now the work we are giving to you is for you to interpret that proverb and tell us how you would apply it.
Okay.
Is that okay?
That is quite in order.
Fantastic.
He can shoot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the Republic of Niger. Now, Niger, by landmass, is the largest country on the continent.
Is it bigger than Sudan?
It's bigger. Bigger than everybody.
Okay.
Yes.
And DRC Congo?
Bigger. Throw in Algeria, bigger.
Okay.
Bigger.
I'll
Nigeria,
confirm.
bigger.
No, Nigeria is out of the equation. It is only DRC Congo,
bigger.
Sudan, and Niger that we can look at. Yeah.
Bigger.
Do you have another word, CT?
Bigger. 1.267
kilometers.
No.
Okay.
Square kilometers.
Okay.
Kilometers. It's huge.
Yeah.
But 80% of the country is desert.
Is arid, yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Sahara Desert that you know of, 80% of
Bulk of
country.
it.
Yes.
Bulk of it
But
is actually in Niger.
Yes, but the interesting thing is there's something, a river. I found it of interest when I look at what in Nigeria they call the Niger River.
Yeah.
It's also in Niger.
Yes.
And it brought me to the Nile. Then it brought me to the Limpopo. Then it brought me to very many rivers, the Congo River. And it brought me to understanding what it is that rivers do on this continent.
Yeah.
Yesterday I declared that the true Pan-Africanists are the rivers.
Yeah, they cross borders. And if you look at Zambezi, from where it comes from all the way to the Indian Ocean, passing through Malawi,
Yes.
Rufiji as well,
Yes.
at the border of Tanzania and Malawi and Zambia.
Yes.
So Niger as well.
Yes.
Nile, the longest river in Africa.
Yes.
Crossing through about 4 countries from Uganda.
Yes.
And getting bulk, and this is very important for Kenyans, bulk of the water from Lake Victoria is actually from the Mau escarpment. The rivers from Mau escarpment are the ones that feed into Lake Victoria.
Which everybody else enjoys. Then there's a Chari River which flows through Central Africa, Republic, Chad, and Cameroon.
Yeah.
These rivers, you really took time in your geography classes.
Yes.
This one, I'm
impressive.
impressed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
There's also another river that comes from eastern Ethiopia all the way to through Mogadishu to the Indian Ocean.
Okay.
Yes. It feeds the 2 countries. So basically, we are saying that rivers actually are Pan-Africanist.
Okay. So what's the proverb now?
Right. Even if a goat frowns, someone will buy it at the market.
That's a very interesting proverb. Even though a goat frowns,
Even if it frowns,
yes,
someone will buy it.
someone will buy it.
Yes.
And I agree with that proverb because, you Siti, I don't know why you are laughing.
No,
How would you interpret that?
How I would interpret that is that there are people who look at things as who look at a glass as half empty. There's someone who look at a glass as half full. For the one who has bought the goat, even though it has frowned, he looks at issues as half full and doesn't look at the goat as half empty. Yeah.
He means he's a goat.
Nyama ni nyama.
Yes.
Nyama ni
Smiling
nyama.
or frowning.
Yeah.
Face. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's great. That's the way to look at it, isn't it? And the great thing about opinions is that they can be diverse, as
Exactly.
there are many.
Yes.
So we're looking into the energy sector in this country, and let's start from the place whereby, we're looking into what plans and what implementation is happening with certain things in the country to ensure other things, and coming from places where it could be speculation or it could be true. Costs of doing business are directly linked to energy. Looking at where Kenya will be able to compete to power up industry, to power up manufacturing, related directly to to energy. Energy as a marker for the building of any economy is a big ticket item. So trying to get an overview from this State Department to see how is this sector directly involved with the building of Kenya's economy, just from an overview perspective.
Let me start on something that we did yesterday. And yesterday we were with the president in Steamer Club, where we were signing contracts worth 11.6 billion shillings. And they are meant to power up 72% of the land size of Kenya. And that is the Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Program. Just as Siti Muga said, that Niger is a very huge country that is a desert. Similarly, our ASAL area, that is arid and semi-arid area, they actually cover about 76%. They are quite vast. And building energy infrastructures in those counties will require a lot of money if we are to connect them to the main grid, because you are doing so many kilometers of transmission lines to go and get a small population of people. So government thought, under the leadership of President William Samoei Ruto, that let us do something different. Let us do what we call the mini grids. These are solar plants where we put a solar plant with a small diesel generator, then store that power so that it can also be used during the day. Then once it is stored, then you can be able to dispatch it 24/7. So we are going to do 113 of them. And other than that, because those areas, again, remember that they have they are arid and they have nomadic people, we do have boreholes. And we want these boreholes to help the communities. And one of the ways to help these communities is to solarize those boreholes such that the water resource that is underneath can easily be gotten from underneath without using diesel generators, which are costly. So the program that we launched yesterday is going to cover the construction of 113 mini-grids. Then it is also going to build 343 solarized boreholes and standalone solar systems in public facilities.
Okay.
So it's a very good program. That is what we did yesterday. Then secondly, again, in about 35 counties, last year, May 27th, we signed another contract of 22 billion shillings, where we are going to do last mile and connect about 296,000 households. Remember, Kenya, we are already ahead of most African countries other than South Africa in terms of connectivity. We are currently at around 76%. As of the day before yesterday, the connected customers to the grid were 9.902 thousand customers. We want
From when?
From inception, from the time
9,000?
9 million,
Okay.
902,000. This year's Madaraka Day is going to be, the theme is going to be energy. And we have an ambitious target of getting to 10 million customers connected to the grid by the time we are getting to 1st of June.
So essentially what we're saying, PS, is that a fifth, if we're going to take it in terms of population, a fifth.
No, don't look at the...
So how, that's what I want to ask.
Yeah.
How do we look at this? Because when we say that if there's a percentage of those who are connected to the grid, how do we look? We can't look at it in terms of population.
Households?
Because do we say households or do we say businesses?
Households.
Industry? How do we look at it? Okay.
Households. Okay. We have about 12.6 million households.
Okay.
So if we cross the 10 million mark, we'll be now working with the 2.6 million households to cover.
So essentially, we are saying about 75% of the households in Kenya today have been connected to the national grid.
Exactly. Actually, it is 76%.
Okay.
And if we cross the 10 million mark, we'll be crossing to around 77, 78%.
Okay.
We remember that we have an ambitious target of getting to 100% connectivity by the year 2030. So then now we'll be working now towards connecting these 2.6 million customers. And for your information, these are usually the most difficult part. The last batch in any race, when you are trying to close the last mile because you have already exhausted most of your resources, you are burning out, is usually the most difficult part. Why? Because remember, these are the people who have been left in areas that are either far from the grid or they have been sandwiched between two transformers. So even identifying them becomes a challenge. But we are determined to ensure that we do get to them. And also, something else that we talk about, and this, because we have two ladies in this studio, is something we call clean cooking. For you ladies who are seated here, you may not understand.
My heart wants to disabuse you of the notion that only women cook, right?
No.
I'm trying my best to...
No.
But okay.
Yeah. You know, in Africa, every 3 meals out of 4
are cooked
are
by women.
cooked, not by women, are cooked using wood fuel and charcoal. And we have an ambitious target again of, in Kenya it is about 68% of the population. They are still using, even in the cities, by the way, even in the cities, we are still using wood fuel and charcoal. We want to transition them to use LPG, to use electricity, to use biogas for those who have farms that have 5 cows and above. So we still have another target of transiting, other than connecting them to to electricity, we also want to give dignity to our people for them now to embrace clean cooking. But that will be another discussion for another day.
Okay.
And we'll give you what we are trying to do to accelerate the growth of LPG
Yeah.
as a country. The president is very keen on increasing the per capita consumption of LPG consumption in the country and also the per capita consumption of electricity consumption in the country.
Electricity, I
Yes.
mean, as is a byproduct of energy. We know this. But the electricity costs in Kenya are still relatively high. That what you consume for 100 shillings, a unit of power thereabouts, either doesn't, number one, last you very long, or it is only able to power up certain things. I mean, very plainly, electricity in Kenya is expensive. And it has gotten more expensive over the years. That what you get for the shilling that you spend and what you're able to power up then don't really meet each other. Why is electricity still so expensive in Kenya? That's part A. And part B, if we talk about industry and the cost of doing business, electricity is always named as one of the first items as the reasons why goods and services then become more expensive. Why is it still so expensive, Pia?
Case in point, I just wanted to share a particular message of somebody who buys a token worth, let's just give it 300 shillings. They'll get 12 units, is it? The token amount charged 197 shillings. So the rest of it, that is 102 thereabout, goes to other charges. A common mwananchi listening to you, who you want to connect, is asking where these other charges are and what really happens in between. Yeah, as you explain why it's expensive for that matter.
No, I want to explain how we arrive at the energy costs. But first of all, the Kenya electricity system is disbundled. What do I mean by disbundled? You'll find, for example, in 2 or 3 neighboring countries, we have one utility company that generates, transmits, and distributes.
Right.
Here we have our main generator, which is Kengen and GDC. Then we have IPPs, who are
Independent power producers.
Then once we generate that power, and for your information, our power is not subsidized, which is why it is relatively higher than if you compare with the region. And why are we saying about subsidization? Remember, for you to subsidize electricity, you have to get that cost of that unit from somewhere. Either the taxpayer, you move part of your taxes to take care of the cost of generation. But in our case, our cost of power is not subsidized at all, from generation cost, transmission cost, distribution cost. And that is probably one of the reasons why. Number 2, we did sign what I would call, by then, about 10, 15 years ago, I would call what you call the feed-in tariff. If you look at the transition of and the development that has happened over time, if you look at the feed-in tariff that was given to wind power, to solar power, they were given at a rate of close to 12 US cents per kilowatt hour. If you look at the cost of generation of geothermal, it is about 6.9 US cents per kilowatt hour. It is quite the lowest. What we are importing from Ethiopia, because currently we are importing from Ethiopia, we are importing about at 6.5 plus the wheeling tariff, about 7 US cents. So what happened by then, the cost of wind tariff, the cost of turbines, the cost of solar panels, by then was quite expensive, and that is why the feed-in tariff was at 12 US cents. However, over time, we have seen research and technology and a lot of investment in renewable energy technologies, where you are seeing now, for example, EPRA, if you look at the gazetted price today, if you are to start generating power from solar, you will generate at 5.69 US cents. If you are to generate wind, today, you'll generate at 5.85 US cents. What does that mean? Because we have already exhausted what we built, and we need to bring on board more cheaper power plants over time, once we bring more cheaper power plants, like now we have 70 megawatts coming in from geothermal, from Menengai. It's going to come in at 6.9 US cents. We want to bring on board another 63 megawatts from Olkaria 1 rehabilitation. It's going to come lower at around 6.5 US cents. That is going to help us now lower the leveraged cost of energy, because our current generation costs, average of all, when you use diesel, you use wind, you use geothermal, you use hydro. Currently, we are generating at around 10 shillings. We want to still come lower per unit. So that now that can translate to Kenyans. Is it going to happen today? I can tell Kenyans no. But in the next couple of years, as we increase consumption and we bring on board more cheaper energy sources, then we can assure you Kenyans that we are going to see lower cost of power. But as of now, for us to lower the cost of power, somebody has to pay the cost.
I hear you. So essentially, this argument has been laid previously. I believe that the MD of Kenya Power has said the same thing, that the push is to have more people consuming power, and then what you're able to do that as a result is then you're able to lower the cost. But it seems counterproductive to me, because in order for people to consume power, it has to be affordable. That you have that people will say, okay, well, I'm not going to power an iron, and you're saying, okay, have people use power at the end of the day. And that way you will say you can have more people consuming, right? But if it is expensive, what's the likelihood that they can actually consume and they're not able to afford it?
There are usually two arguments.
Okay.
Number one, in Kenya, we have what we call constrained demand of power. What does that mean? What that means is there are areas in this country that still wants to consume more power. For example, Western Kenya. For example, coasts. For example, areas south of Rift Valley. Some pockets of Mount Kenya, they still need to consume more power. So what have we been doing? And that is why you'll see, like last week, 12 February, we recorded now what we call the country's peak. We have a new peak demand of power at 2,316 megawatts. Before that, on 15th of January, we had closed 2,304. In December, we had closed 2,288 megawatts. So we have seen exponential growth of power. And why is that so? Because we are opening up what we call the transmission line. There are some transmission lines that were started, and we are almost completing them. For example, I can name just a few. We completed Sultan Ahmud to Eloitoktok, and so therefore now the areas of Eloitoktok, Amboseli, are getting stable power. Isibania to Awendo, we have completed. We had, and I believe you saw, was it last year, early last year, when my former cabinet minister, Davis Chirchir, when he went for a Sunday service with the president, you saw some residents of Bomet trying to cheer him down. And the reason was we had serious power instabilities in South Nyanza. And the reason why we had those serious power instabilities is because during the evening peak, the line between Muhoroni to Chemosit was seriously constrained. So we decided to build a line that we call Narok to Bomet, and KPLC have already completed a small link that is helping us alleviate that challenge. And now today I can look at Kenyans in the eyes and tell them that in areas of Bomet, Sotik, at least now we are having stable power even in the evening. And once we complete the missing link of 132 kV between Narok and Bomet, the entire area of South Nyanza, from Kisii, Isibania, all the way to Homa Bay, all those areas, they are going to get stable power. Including Migori. Those areas are going to get stable power. And during the evening peak, they will not have the power instability that they are currently experiencing. So as we increase this demand of power and consumption, and we are seeing it, and this year alone, we are seeing that we are going to cross the 2,400 mark of peak demand, and that will now give us another challenge as a country, because we need to accelerate a generation of more power, and also maybe talk to our neighbors to increase. In fact, as early as this morning, I was speaking with my MD from KPLC, who was telling me we might need to speak to Ethiopia as fast as possible, so that they can be able to give us at least 50 or 100 megawatts during peak, because like yesterday alone, we had a serious generation shortfall. We had 2 units that came out, and what that affected the country, and that is more expensive than the expensive power, is that some people had to be off the grid for a few hours, because what was being generated and what was being demanded by the consumers was more. And so therefore, areas of Villafranca, some areas in Nanyuki, some areas in North Rift, some areas in Migori had to be shut off for a few hours. So what I'm saying, Udo, is there is an issue of cost of power, but no power is more costly than expensive power, because sometimes we have to push up more diesel generators, and diesel generation is more costly, to avoid shutting off when we have generation shortfall. And as a matter of fact, I can say, and I would want Kenyans to look at the cost of power in 2022, when we had the prolonged drought, when we had to generate about 16% of our power from diesel generators, and the cost of power today, and you will see there is a serious decline, because today, as we speak, we are generating between 8 and 9% from diesel generators. That alone. On fuel levy, because you see it in your power bill.
Yes, you do.
That alone, the stepping down from 16 to 9 affects your power bill on the lower end. So there is something that we have been able to do, and we thank the good rains that we have had, and so therefore our dams are full, and we are able now to generate more using hydro than generating from diesel, which is more expensive.
Okay, let's
go to a break.
Yes, we are. Let's take a break at this point, and we'll come back. Alex Washira is the Principal Secretary in the State Department of Energy, and we're having that conversation this hour in terms of, all right, so how essentially is energy powering up the economy, and we're going to come back and look at that solar question, because yesterday was a big solar move that was made by government, but in terms of the infrastructure to surround that and to support it, what exactly is being done? So we'll come back and continue with that conversation after this break. 1 million people enter into the job market every year. Many of them don't have the skills that they require to connect them with opportunities. The KCB Foundation, through the 2 Jiajiri program, is connecting folks with opportunity through a 6-month skills program after school, and you can come out on top essentially with the skills that you need and a toolkit to get you going. Between the age of 18 to 35, you can connect with these opportunities. Find out more about the 2 Jiajiri program under the KCB group /foundation for more information.
People come to me and they say they get discomfort when they have ice cream. Can you imagine that? Avoiding having cold ice cream. Sensodyne gives you long-lasting protections against sensitivity. And people come in and they're like, oh, it works. I can have ice cream and I'm not in any discomfort. I recommend Sensodyne because it works. It's brilliant.
We value your feedback and welcome your comments, queries, and complaints regarding our content. You can get in touch with us via SMS on 22151. Call 0719-012450 or 0719-012090 or email feedback@standardmedia.co.ke. Our PO Box number is 30080-00100, Nairobi, or deliver it to our offices at Standard Group Center, Mombasa Road, Nairobi.
This is Maisha Asubuhi, na kama ilivyo desturi naitwa Solomon Zuli. Moja inakuaga moja.
Yeah.
2 inakuaga ni twins.
Yes.
Lakini 3 kwa Kiswahili tunahitaji. Tunasema ni 3 sure.
Sugar boys and the cute boy, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm failing the one.
Introducing
Mpigo tena zaidi finally bwana.
Finally.
Nimezama ndani ya stesheni nambari 1. Tuko mbele pamoja. Tatu shua zaidi. Nitamen Mandrio kipenda niteji baba.
Karibu sana Nairobi, lakini mimi nitakupatia memo ya Nairobi. Watoto wazuri Nairobi. Lazima uwe makini.
Hapo archives hapo. Ulipoingia tu.
Hapo tutamuintroduce kwa kamba ndugu zangu.
Monday to Friday, each and every week. Itakuwa ni tatu shua kama unavyotuona hapa. Sugar Boy, Sugar Weasel, Main Man Rio, Solomon Jeffazuri. Hii ni
tatu shua zaidi.
Usipime.
We all know why we're all here. The mission is to attack. The wait is over. The real deal is here. Creatives, TikTokers, Wahesh, skillpreneurs, Masturi, Vaibu, Wachaiwake. Target 1, DJ Matt, the beat assassin. Target 2, Jitabi, the style enforcer. Target 3, DJ Magic E, the frequency bandit. Target 4, Linga Penda, the laughing menace. Iwake, starting this Saturday, 10 p.m.
DJ Magic E, enjoy the music.
Remain seamless. Get on to www.virtofx.com today. And as we continue with our conversation, the PS in the State Department of Energy, Alex Washira, is our guest. And he's actually walking over to the comments that are being made on the screen this morning as we look at some of those comments that are coming in from folks today and questions. And we'll be going through some of those this hour. Yeah. But let's go to the solar issue, PS. Yesterday, these projects launched. You talked about solarized boreholes. You talk about
mini grids being set up. Yeah. So the solar question has come into the conversation for years, but it would appear as though the requisite implementation infrastructure then is a thing of question. Where are we with that? And why is solar not being seen as, one of the big boys in the conversation in terms of what can be done to power up Kenya? Let me start by saying that solar and wind are what we call variable renewable energy technologies. What does that mean? It means that you cannot be able to control. We do not classify them as what we call firm capacity. For power, whether there is rain, there is sunshine. For example, this studio needs to run, whether it is raining, whether there is sunshine. You cannot guarantee that with solar, and you cannot guarantee that with wind.
Because you can't control it.
Because you cannot control it.
Okay.
So if you want to grow the economy with solar and wind, then previously, over the last couple of years, you may not have been. But remember that now what has happened is, one, the cost of solar PV panels has come down because of mass production. And secondly, we now do have what we call battery energy storage, which has also coming down, and we believe in the next 2, 3, 4 years will come down further. What does that mean? That means that we can now be able to accelerate development of solar technology and have battery backed. And that is why what we launched yesterday in the mini grids, we'll have solar panels that will also have batteries, and we'll now be able to power those areas 24/7. There's someone who asked a question here about the issue of Lodwar, and he asked, what will it cost us to shut it down the diesel generators in Lodwar? And I want to tell that Kenyan that and these affect your power bill, by the way. We spend about 900 million shillings on diesel purchase annually to power Lodwar alone. So what we are doing this year is we are constructing a line, 66 kV line, from Lokichar to Lodwar. And that will ensure that we shut down those diesel generators by April next year. Now, go to an area called Wajir.
Yes.
Wajir is another town that uses a lot of diesel. As a matter of fact, we have a constrained demand again in Wajir because we are only able to generate about 3.5 to 4 megawatts of diesel generators, and they have to run 24/7. It is very costly. We're using some funds that we got from AFD. We want to do a solar hybrid system there. That will cost us about 2.6 billion, and it will be 8 megawatts. So we'll have solar there and batteries and a small diesel generator, just in case there are days when we have low solar output, then we can use the diesel generator to power up. There is also another interesting question, and I want to speak to Kenyans and remember what I called constrained demand. There's someone, I think Seronai, who was asking about Rabai. What happens to power stability in Malindi and Kilifi?
Yeah.
Yes. Remember, I did say that we have a serious challenge in Western Kenya and the coast.
Yeah.
And the reason is, our power is basically generated in Olkaria, that is areas of Rift Valley, and in the Eastern Hydros, that is in the areas of Embu. Then you have to move that power over 500 kilometers to Mombasa.
Over lines.
Over lines. You have to move that power again to Western Kenya, another 400 kilometers. So what happens is that you have voltage instabilities in those areas. We are almost completing a 400 220 kV substation in Mariakani. As a matter of fact, next week the president will make a tour of that substation so that we can accelerate the construction. And from there, that's where the line from Dongo to Dongo Kundu will come from. Then there's a line we are doing, Rabai Kilifi line. Is being done by a Spanish company. We believe that by the end of this year we should have completed. We have a substation that we are constructing with KPLC at somewhere called Bomani. Those are the small instances, things that we are trying to do so that we can stabilize power. But most important, we have a solar plant in Malindi. Remember I told you that solar plants are variable renewable technology. So what happens is when a solar plant is dispatching, then there is and next time I'm coming to studio, I'll show you a graph of a typical solar plant dispatching. It dispatches, then there is a cloud cover. And what happens now with the cloud cover?
Yeah.
The generation dips. That affects your power at one point. So therefore, we have to run the diesel generators in Mombasa so that we ensure that there is voltage stability. So one of the things that we want to do is to allow these solar plants to probably expand a little bit and bring on board battery energy storage. What will that do? It will help us now. It will help them even when there is a cloud cover. It will not affect the grid because the power where they will be dispatching to the grid will be passing through the battery. And so therefore now the battery can guarantee us, if you are supposed to dispatch that 5 megawatts, you can be able to dispatch that 5 megawatts. And when now you are seeing your voltage levels are dropping in the batteries, you can be able to call National Control Center and say, I'll only be able to give you that 5 megawatts in the next 3 minutes. So make sure that within the next 3 minutes, you ramp up any other source of generation.
I have to ask this question.
Yes.
Of all the storage facilities, we refer to battery. It's not the only way to store energy, is it?
No, it isn't.
And for us, which is the most cost-effective and which is the one that we can use best? And if we have one and we know it works, what stops us from having other sources of storing energy so that should one fail, the other one can kick in?
We have, in terms of long-term power generation and power storage for the grid, we have 3 areas of storage. Number 1 is battery energy storage. Number 2 is pumped hydro storage.
Yes.
And number 3, we have now green hydrogen as a source of storage. Now, what is easy to deploy for Kenya?
That's why you are here to tell us.
Yes. The first thing that we need to deploy, and we have already secured about $100 million from World Bank on what we are calling Green Resilience Program, is that Kenyan is going to implement for us the first battery energy storage, 100 megawatts, and is going to be in Olkaria. What will that help us? During the night, for some weird reasons, we have high wind output in certain days. So when we have that high wind output, and we are still generating using our geothermal, and our hydros now, we have told them to go to sleep. We want to store that power such that we do not vent in the geothermal, and this wind that will be available during the night, we store that energy. And then now we can be able to slowly dispatch it during the day and help us in the country's peak, which happens between 6 and 10 p.m. Now, for the solar plants, we have about 4 big solar plants, 5. We have 3 in Eldoret, giving us 120 megawatts. We have 1 owned by Redek in Garissa, giving us 55 megawatts. And the one that I've talked about in Malindi, giving us another 40 megawatts. Those ones, we have to allow them to now start having battery energy storage so that what they are doing to the grid, the instability of the grid, the variability of the grid, and it is not their choice. It's because when there is a good solar output, they will be able to dispatch. But when there's small cloud cover, they have to drop. So we need to bring on board battery energy for now. But our long term is also to bring on board what we call the High Grand Falls Dam. And the High Grand Falls Dam will also have battery. Will have pumped energy storage, and our plan of bringing High Grand Falls Dam is it will have a base load of about 200 megawatts, but also peaking ability of about 600 megawatts.
Okay.
Meaning that should any power plant drop, whether wind, solar, that hydro will be able to peak, and it is. Even when we have a national outage, it takes about 4 minutes for hydro plants to come up and to dispatch to the highest ability. For geothermals, they'll take their sweet time up to 8 hours before they can ramp up. So what we need is now to work, and that we are doing as a country. We are working very fast so that we can accelerate the development of High Grand Falls Dam, and that will help us now with the battery energy storage. Pumped hydro will help us stabilize the grid.
Bona PS, do we have an aging transmission network? Do we have an issue with the aging transmission network right now? Is it being worked around? I mean, is there something you want to talk about, perhaps, over the years?
I don't want to call it aging transmission network, because our transmission network, we did not build serious transmission lines for close to 30 years.
All right.
If you remember, for the longest, we only had about 4 or 5 transmission lines. We had one transmission line coming from Jinja in Uganda all the way to Dandora, and from Dandora to Rabai in the coasts.
Okay.
And then we had a line from Rabai to Kilifi on wooden poles. Then we had one line from Masinga to Nanyuki. We had another line from Kiambere to Coast, and another line from Kiambere to Nairobi, and Takwel to Lesos. Those were the transmission that we had. Then President Moi built another line from Kisumu to Muhoroni. Kibaki came, and when now Kibaki came, that's when now we started building transmission from 2008, because President Kibaki is when now disbanding was done, where government saw for us we need transmission networks. So KETRACO was created, and from the time KETRACO was created up to now, we have moved. We had about 2,000 kilometers of transmission lines. As of today, we have 10,000.
Okay.
To 10,000.
Yeah, 2 to 10,000. So we don't really have an aging transmission. We have a constrained transmission network. In that, you can imagine those lines. For example, the line that carries power from Masinga to Nanyuki, it is already at peak, is almost overloaded now. And that is why, and we have extended that line now from Nanyuki to Rumuruti. And that is why of the lines that we wanted to do, we have to bring on board PPP projects. If you look at the lines that had been proposed to be done by Africa 50, they are still on progress. That is Lesos to Lesuk and Kisumu to Musaga. We had others that were to be done by Adani. Remember, Adani wanted to do a line from Gilgil to Thika. And if you look at Thika, if you drive to Thika today, you'll see there is a diesel generator on the left. Anywhere you see a diesel generator, just know that there is a serious transmission network. There is a load that cannot be met by the existing transmission network. So you'll see in Thika, you'll find a Thika power plant there. Here in Athi River, you will see there are 2 diesel power plants. It's because for the longest time we did not have an evacuation route to the river, which is an industrial area. But thanks to President William Ruto, we have been able now to commission the line between Isinya to the river to here in Embakasi. And that is why now here you are seeing serious power stability. So we have about 79 transmission lines that needs to be done.
So the constraining, and this is where I came from, because we're just in February of 2025, and it's another thing to make sure I have electricity. It's a different thing to have electricity and be inconvenienced. Just like that. Your school, your work, all of a sudden, nationwide blackouts. And I'm saying that because 2025 is here. Constrained is the word, but I want your assurance, okay, for the common Mwananchi, because sometimes there's a lot of complexities in what you're saying, but I'm speaking for the common Mwananchi listening from a cyber cafe, listening from a barber shop, that your ministries that doing the best they can, because I know South Africa could have the worst of, the rationing, etc. But it's one thing to bring that electricity to me and then inconvenience me again because of the constraints that we have. What's happening? What's the progress? Because you're saying it's yet to be done. Are we fast tracking this? Are we putting it as priority as well in that regard?
There are 2 things that we are doing as a State Department to assure Kenyans that of their power supply consistent.
Yes.
Number 1 is that we want to complete all the transmission lines that are under construction. Number 2, even with the fall of Adani, we are still shopping and will be advertising for more companies to come in and help us, because we have a constrained headroom as a country. That us moving from 2,000 to 10,000 kilometers of transmission lines, we have done through the government balance sheet.
All right.
But the current government balance sheet cannot allow us now to move from 10,000 to 20,000, which we want to do by the year 2040.
Okay.
So we have to bring on board now more private players for them now to build the transmission lines. And once they build the transmission lines, they can now be able to charge a small component of what we call the wheeling tariff, then they so that they recover their investment. So we want to bring on board more private capital, complete the lines that we are doing. Then there is another thing, generation. Because if you don't plan well, power plants are not plug and play.
Right. So
they take a while to build, and they require 2 or 3 things. One, they require huge financial capital. And that is why by the time any banker is coming in to bank our energy project, they require a PPA and they require government letter of support so that they can pump in money.
So now the thing that has come with that, bring in your independent power producers. And the issue that has come with that is that they now are wrapped up in contracts for I don't even know how many years, with even if that they produce or provide extra power that is unused, Kenya still has to pay for that. And we know where that money comes from. Usually it comes to it shows up in your bill. It shows up, in other taxes that we've seen. How then do you balance the need for extra power, the need for extra generation, with also the needs that independent power producers would have in terms of making their bottom line?
We have what we call the least cost power development plan, which is a plan where we are saying in 2027 we expect growth of power to grow at a certain percentage, and so therefore which power plants do we bring on board so that they can be able to meet this demand. It's a very careful balancing act that has to be done, and the reason why we are, and thanks to technology. Some of the lessons that we have been able to learn, and we are saying now with battery storage, then some of the tariffs can be changed from take or pay, because some of the tariffs that the IPPs got were take or pay, to take and pay. Because if you have battery storage, you can be able to generate and store your power. Then when the country demands that power, you can be able to pick that power. So over time, we are seeing change in technology, and that is going to help us now modify some of the pitfalls that we fell into that have led us to where we are in terms of the high power bills. So we have learned our lessons as an industry. Yes, we have.
Have we?
Yes, we have.
But we seem to be responding to problems that we have. When you talk about plan, you're talking about 2027.
2040.
Is there a master plan? Because we can see the trajectory of our population. We can see the trajectory of our needs, so that we can talk about a time when, yes, with all the PPPs, we'll get to a point when we are, as I say, self-contained. We can do these things ourselves, and with minimal assistance here and there, we can move on. Because as new technology comes in, as you say, we learn. Are we learning to the point where we can actually do these things? And with the projection of the plan, and the plan for not the immediate future, for the long term.
City, I can look at you in the eye, and I'm currently looking at you in the eyes. And I'm
I
telling
want you to be assured that I'm also looking at you in the eye.
Yes. And I'm telling you that we have a plan. We have a robust master plan. The robust master plan speaks from today to 2044 on what we are going to bring on board as a generator to meet the growing demand. Number two, the same plan speaks also on transmission system, what we are going to increase in the transmission system so that we can meet our demand. For example, as we speak today, Nairobi, the Nairobi ring, we use 66 kV to distribute power from the main substations. We are seeing serious demand in Nairobi, growth of power. For example, if you look at Kilimani or Kileleshwa, 5-10 years ago, most of those houses were standalone.
They were bungalows.
They were all bungalows with 4-5 people in the house.
Yes.
Today, where 4 people used to live, there are about 100 people who are living, and actually more than that.
100 is few.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Looks like condos.
The energy infrastructure that was being used to transmit power there was a 66 kV. So we are actually urgently looking for funding so that we can now move the transmission system from 66 to 132, because we need to deliver more power to these load centers that are emerging.
Okay.
Today, 10 years ago, if you drove from Mombasa to Malindi, that area had only settlement houses. Today, it is an industrial area. All major cement factories are on that area. Special economic zones are on that area. Industries have come up. The power demand has shot, not 10 times, 100 times. So we are also doing a serious substation there so that we can be able to meet the demand. So we have a robust master plan. We have learned our lessons, and I am looking at you in the eye sitting, and I'm telling you
It will be done.
It will be done. And you are not going to face what our neighbors down south, I don't want to mention their names, what they are, because if you fail to plan in energy is a very delicate thing. If you fail to plan generation and transmission, you end up load shedding because you failed in the plan. So we do not want to fall into that pitfall.
There's too much around energy for us to wrap this up in 1 hour, but we'd like to, there's so much that we didn't scratch. Talking about offshore wind energies, for example, and looking at, supplies from other jurisdictions, just like what's happening with Ethiopia, between Kenya and Ethiopia. So it's necessary for us to have those conversations. I did promise you some nourishment. Before I say thank you for coming, Delamere says you can have a moment where you can actually, breathe. After you've looked CT in the eye and given him that promise, be sure that you can now take a break with real fruit in that strawberry yogurt from Delamere. And as you take that moment before you get back into your day, enjoy a moment with us and Delamere. And as we say, thank you very much, Alex Washira, Principal Secretary in the State Department of Energy, for being here this morning. Conversations continue. Asante sana.
Thank you for having me this morning. I agree with you that we have just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
In fact, as a matter of fact, we want to add generation in Mombasa so that we can address that issue.
Yeah.
We also want to do another source of generation in the Western Kenya. I like what you have given me for nourishment.
Yes.
I would have preferred if we had vanilla, so Delamere needs to deliver.
They have vanilla and it's real vanilla, so we'll find you one.
Is my favorite.
Oh,
they have very nice yogurt.
We'll make that happen.
Them.
Thank you so
and
much.
As a farmer, because I'm a farmer of both the dairy and wheat, then when I see dairy products on the table, I am like, yes.
There we go.
Milk in the village has a market.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Asante.
It's 9 a.m.